Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Anna McNaught, and I will be your host today. And today I am joined by the very famous Aaron Nace. He is an amazing Photoshop artist and a very good friend of mine. And Aaron, I love you dearly, so I'm super excited to be here with you today.
I'm super excited too, and I also love you dearly. And we're gonna have a great stream today. We are gonna be doing so many cool things. Going from Lightroom into Photoshop. We're gonna be using some artificial intelligence tools. We're gonna be doing some compositing, some object removal, color matching, all kinds of really, really fun stuff. I'm super excited.
Nice. That sounds amazing. I'm super excited as well. I always learn so much from you. And as you know, obviously, Aaron, and I've told a couple people here on Adobe Live when we streamed before together, I learned so much of what I know and still use today from you. And then this past year, I had the honor of teaching at Adobe Max, and Aaron came to my class. And so that was so fun for it to go full circle and have you in the audience watching me teach and then me coming to your class. And I love what the Adobe community has created for all of us.
Yeah, I completely agree. Adobe Max is my favorite event all year long. You killed your class. It was so nice.
Oh,
Front
thanks.
row, baby.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Well, I just want to give everyone in the chat as well a warm welcome. Thank you all for joining us. Hello, Marsha and Oliver and Sam. So nice to have you all here. And don't forget, if you are watching on YouTube or Behance, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then if you're watching over on YouTube, feel free to hop over to Behance and hop into the chat to ask Aaron any questions about what we're working on today. And then also just real quick, don't forget, Adobe introduced Firefly last week, which is a super cool new AI program where you can make all sorts of generative art images as well as generative text and just get super crazy with it. I've been really enjoying playing with that myself, and I haven't really made anything that interesting yet, but at least learning it. Like, they have a whole column down the side where you can choose the style that you like. You can choose kind of the look and whether you want it to be a painting or a photograph or whatever. So there's so many great options in there. Be sure to get on the beta if you're not already and check that out because it's very, very fun. So without further ado, Aaron, let's just jump right in and let us know what we're going to be working on today.
Let's do it. We got a jam-packed schedule for you guys today. We're going to be doing so many cool examples. And we're starting off here. So we're going to be going back and forth from Lightroom to Photoshop. So we're starting off here with this image of a person just like listening to some headphones, jamming out, kind of like blank sky. And I was like, let's put some interesting like graphic type image behind this person, cut them out from their background. So I actually went into Midjourney and created this image. Which was, I wanted to create something like with music notes, like kind of like going through the air and like mixing with clouds to kind of fit with this image. So we're going to be putting those together. So I'm going to hold Shift. We're going to click on both of those. I'm going to right click. We're going to go to Edit In. Okay. And then I'm just going to say Open as Layers in Photoshop. So we're just going to open those both up in Photoshop. And it's just going to take a second and then I'll pop into Photoshop. There we go. So, okay, with Photoshop, there we go. We can see we've got two layers. Now, this is, all right, let's hit F for full screen and go ahead and zoom in. So this is the image that we got like straight out of Midjourney. I really like it. I spent like an hour and a half trying to get the right one because if any of you guys have worked with artificial intelligence image prompts, like, you know, you got to go back and forth with it a million times to get what you want. But like eventually, like I got something that I'm super happy with. But it's small. It's just way smaller than what we need. I want to put it in as a background for this image. We're going to color match and do all that. So first thing we're going to do, we're actually going to be using artificial intelligence within Photoshop. We're going to be using super zoom to make this much bigger. So let's go ahead and click on the layer we want to super zoom, make larger. We're going to go to filter, down here to neural filters, which are the AI filters in Adobe. There we go. We'll go ahead and bring this right up here. And then we're going to go all the way down to where we see super zoom. Let's go ahead and turn that on. And then you can see here's our image. We got our zoom level. Right now it's set to 1 4x. We're just going to hit this plus a bunch of times until it gets to 4x. So it's going to be 4 times the size of our original image. Now this is processing on the device. You can see, I don't know if you can see it on my screen. It's on the very bottom left here, but it's like 3%. So it does take like a second to do it. But basically like it's scaling this up and then it's filling in all of the detail with like additional information. So this is artificial intelligence. Like it's going to scale it up, but you're still going to have like a lot of the quality of the original. It works well on photographs. It works well on illustrations, graphics, like all these things are like, you know, there's a ton of possibility here within this tool. So it's super cool. Now we're going to be compositing this in, but like you can see, it's going to take 6 minutes to do it. So in the meantime, we're going to go back into Lightroom and we're just going to do like a nice simple example. We're just going to take a look at this image here back in Lightroom. So with this photograph, I really like the colors here, these like flowers here. What are these, hydrangeas?
Yes, good job.
Hey. And I wanted to match the color of this kimono to the hydrangeas. So we're going to be using some additional tools within Lightroom to do that. So let's go ahead. We're going to start with D for develop. Okay, now we're going to be using our masking tool. So let's go all the way over here under the histogram, right down here till we see our mask. Okay, and we're going to just go ahead and select out our subject. There we go. So we want to select our subject. Now, once we have our subject selected, like I don't want her face and, you know, skin, hair, and things like that to be color change. I just want the colors within her kimono here, her actual outfit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to my mask. We're going to click on this little ... the more options here. And I'm going to say, we're going to intersect this mask. Okay. It's going to find where the two masks meet. And we're going to do this with a color range. So let's go ahead and click on the color range here. There we go. And then I'm going to just bring my eyedropper over here to the kimono. There we go. And now you can see that is actually selected. Now, where it says show overlay, the color is actually like kind of the same color as this. So I'm going to just click on the show overlay color and we can just change this to, let me just move this over here. Change this to like a color we can actually see, like that yellow color. So you can actually see like what is getting selected. So that yellow color is what's getting selected. Okay, so the select color range and the subject, they're going to combine to create this mask. Now we can see it's still selected a little bit of our hair. Okay, so what we're going to do is subtract, and I'm going to go down to my brush, and then I'm just going to subtract out the brush. We're going to bring this feathering down, flow all the way up, and then subtract this out. Let's just make our brush a little bit bigger. So these really, really easy to use tools, like we're using 3 different intelligent masks together now to basically select just the colors of just the kimono on just the subject. All right, so let's go back to the mask now. And here, what we can do, we have all our controls for the mask, just like we would have controls for, we're going to click off show overlay there, just like we would have controls for standard editing here in Lightroom. And now what we're going to do, I'm going to click where it says hue. We're going to click on this use fine adjustment. And then we can just take this hue slider and start bringing this to the left or the right. There we go. And as I do, you can see, look at that. I'm changing just the colors on just the kimono on our subject. How amazing is that?
That's incredible. That was like some very fine tuning details and very quickly too.
Like not that, like, yeah, it's like approachable, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, you and I have been doing this for a while, and we know like back in the day, that would have been like 20 minutes of like manual work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It makes me kind of feel a little, just thinking about it.
Yes, I know. And I'm like, okay. It's so funny too, because like I got a little bit of a dirty little secret to admit here.
I love it. I love it.
Here's my dirty little secret. Like I have not used my Wacom tablet in like 6 months.
Oh my God.
I know. I'm just editing like literally with the trackpad on my computer on a laptop because all these artificial intelligence and selection tools are so good at like, I'm just using the trackpad on my computer and I'm blown away. So
love
that's
it.
that's my dirty little secret.
You're stepping into my territory of always using the trackpad and everyone making fun of me for it. So now you heard it here first on Adobe Live. Aaron Nace is using the trackpad.
I know. Don't tell Aaron Nace from like 5 years ago, because I would not have been happy with that statement. But it's true. I'm using the trackpad and it's like, it works. We're going to bring this shadow levels up a little bit as well. I just want to bring our saturation down a little bit. And like, I want to do a nice color match with our hydrangeas. Maybe I want to just, maybe my color isn't exactly right, but this is all non-destructive editing. So I can go in here and change this at any point in time. And let's just go ahead. I want to just turn this off and on so we can see what's done. So there's our before and our after.
Wow.
How cool is that? Oh my God.
It's perfect. Chef's kiss. Mwah.
Just mwah, blows me away, right? So I want to take this like even one step further. I want to bring in some like natural, like glowing light and stuff like that into the background. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a new mask. I'm going to go to select subject again. Okay. And then this time I actually want to select the background. Okay. So what we can do, super easy, just click right here on the ... We're going to go to invert our mask. Okay, so if you ever want to select the background, there we go. This is an easy way to do it. You can also just select background, but you can do things many ways in Photoshop. Okay, what we're next going to do is I'm going to do another intersect, and we're going to do that with a gradient. So let's go here to our little menu item. We're going to go to intersect with, and then I'm going to go to a linear gradient. There we go. And then I'm just going to kind of click and drag right down there like this. Okay, so the show overlay here, you can just see, I'm going to turn this off and on. So you can see that's what's being selected. So basically like behind my subject in a nice like linear gradient fashion, what we're going to be able to do is, let's see, I'll go up here. We'll just bring our shadow levels up. We'll bring our exposure level up, bring my contrast level down. There we go. Bring our highlights. There we go. Basically, I want to make, and then we're going to make our color temperature a little bit warmer to kind of make it look like warm light is kind of like shining in from behind our subject there. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's go ahead and turn that off and on. I'm going to use this little eyeball here. There's our before and the after.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, what? Okay,
that's
just
amazing. It's so subtle and so beautiful.
It's easy too, right? Like, let's turn that off. There's the before. I'll bring my masks over there, the other side, so we can see what we're doing. There's our before, and there's the after, like bringing that nice light into the background of our image and changing the colors of our subject at the same time. Like,
wow. It totally changes the whole vibe of the image in just such a simple little step there, like between the color of her kimono and then the background. It just it makes you feel like you're present in the image.
Nice warm glow. It's so fun. I love doing this stuff, and it's just easier than ever. Like with this artificial intelligence, these are tools, right? And we can use them however we want. They're like, it's up to us to be creative. But like doing this sort of thing in Lightroom used to be impossible. You know, like a couple years ago, like you couldn't do this at all. And now it's so easy to do, and it just like expands our creativity and makes it a lot more fun. So I'm loving it. All right, cool. Well, we're going to jump back into Photoshop here because our image is done processing. Now we're just going to go right down here. Let me see. I'm just going to bring this up here. All right. So here where we've done the super zoom, it did take a second to process, but we're going to output this. I'm just going to say onto a new layer here. Okay. So for everyone who remembers, I was taking this background image and doing a super zoom on it, and it took about 7 minutes to process. That's going to change depending on your device and things like that. But we're going to hit OK, and it's going to output this onto new layer on the same exact document. So let's go ahead and zoom out. There we go. And here we have our new document. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to just hit M for the marquee tool. There we go. And bring this back over here. So there's our...
quick question for you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Marsha was wondering if there's a percentage that you shouldn't go beyond for the zoom for optimal results.
Like, okay, so right now the tool is up to 4x. So it'll give you up to 400% zoom.
Okay.
Like you can actually like do this multiple times if you wanted to, like, and like it'll just kind of like each time it'll just get like a little bit noticeably like less quality, but like still pretty good quality all in all. And this is going to be in the background of our image. And like there are a lot of upscaling tools out there. This is just one of them, but it kind of squished my image a little bit too. Usually it doesn't do that. Let me just like stretch it out back there. But I would say up to 4x, you're totally good on this tool. And like I actually watched a presentation last night on YouTube of someone using Stable Diffusion for upscaling, and that like blew me away. The thing about the tools within Adobe, like Firefly and this super zoom, is they're just easy to use, right? Like it's already in the app you're already using. You just click on it and it does it, right? Like these other tools like Stable Diffusion, they're a bit more complicated, and like at this point you got to be kind of like either tech savvy or like you really want to know, you know, like so I like these tools because they're very accessible. They're like approachable, like we can just do them like already. And, you know, it's like the trickle down effect, right? Like the dopest tech within like within this platform, like eventually it's all going to get user accessible, especially with artificial intelligence, because it moves so fast where like eventually it's all going to be just like incredibly good wherever you go. But if you are looking for like image upscaling, super zoom works really, really well. And Stable Diffusion also works really well. It's just like, it's like harder to use. I don't even understand it. Like I watched like 3 YouTube videos on it last night and I'm like, I still don't even know how to do this. And I'm like a total nerd with this stuff. So
yeah, it is way beyond what my brain can comprehend. Like even just briefly looking at Stable Diffusion, I was like, no.
Yeah, Mid-Journey, I'm like, okay, cool. I can do Mid-Journey, some Stable Diffusion stuff. Because it's so powerful, like there's like a lot of different models you can use, a lot of different plugins and stuff like that. So it's something like I'm gonna dip my toes in, but you know, at this point, Super Zoom is where it's at. It does a really, really good job, and it's already built into Adobe. You already have access to it. So this is what I would recommend. It's what I'm actually using.
Cool. And then one quick question before we keep going.
Yeah.
Bounty wants to know, is this different than convert to smart object? I guess being if you were to transform it and hold the pixels, this is actually giving more information, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so basically how a smart object works, it's kind of like a container for an image, right? So if you start with a large image and then make that a smart object, you can get smaller and not lose resolution. And then you can go back up to the original size and you won't lose any information. You'll just be getting the same amount of information as the original size. But if you try to take that and then make it way bigger, then you're not going to get additional information. So it's going to take the information that was there and stretch it out, right? What this super zoom is doing is it's taking that information, stretching it out, and then it's actually filling in information with what it thinks should be there. It's adding additional detail. So a smart object is never going to like add additional detail to your image when you make it larger, but super zoom actually will add information. Like it's going to look like, you know, when you like really, really, really zoom into something, it starts to just look like jagged and artifacty and things like that.
Yeah.
What super zoom is going to do is it's going to fill that information. It's going to fill those gaps. And instead of like looking all jagged, it's going to look like nice and smooth again.
That's amazing. I feel like a lot of people don't really know about this or use it that often because we all just think, let's stretch it as big as we can. And then the super zoom thing is cool.
It's so cool. I've just started using it. It works really, really well. And as we can see, like, let's just take a look at our original. So like, I'm going to bring that up. So like this here, as you can see, this is the size of the original image, right? Like I'll just turn this off and on so everyone can see it. Like that's the original background that I was able to get directly from Midjourney, right? 1024 by 1024 pixels. And this is what we've upscaled it to. So now it's like actually usable in our high resolution images as backgrounds, things like that.
Amazing.
Amazing. I love it. So what we're gonna do now, I'm just gonna bring my subject up to the very front, up to the very top, and we're gonna go up here to select, and we're gonna go down to select subject. All right, so we're gonna cut our subject out from the background. So select subject. Now you can see she's selected. We got a little marching ants, little dots all around our subject. Every time you do select subject, I always recommend going in and doing a select and mask. That's just gonna make the selection much nicer. So let's go to select and then down to where it says select and mask. There we go. Okay, now here again, you can choose your color you'd like to mask. You can kind of mask this in and out. Let's zoom in and kind of see like the default of what select subject gave us. So like that's what we're working with, like with the hair and stuff like that. Like it's pretty good, but it could be a lot better. So we're gonna go over here all the way to the left-hand side. I'll just bring this over so we can see it a little bit easier. We're gonna go to our refine edge brush tool. There we go, refine edge brush tool. We're gonna click on that. Okay. Now here where it says refine mode, we're gonna click on color aware because we just wanna look at the background color versus the color of our subject. So that color aware is super important. Okay, and then we're just gonna make our brush a little bit smaller and then start painting over here, and it's gonna automatically clean up this edge. So for like hair, for fine details, especially, you know, if you're on a different color background, there we go. Like if there's a nice contrast between the color of your subject and the color of the background, look at that, much better. If I click this show original, that's like what we had originally. Okay, I'm gonna unclick show original and we can see, boom, now we have all this really nice detail in the hair. We're gonna do this right up here as well. Anywhere there's hair, fine details like the eyelashes, here even it missed like the area between her hand and the sky, right? So we're just gonna put that in there as well. And we just kind of scroll around the subject until we're, you know, happy. Oh, here as well, inside her hand. So I'll just click there and look, it automatically knows to fill that in.
So good.
So good. All right, and that's looking really good. Now, keep in mind, you can come back to this at any time. So if it's not perfect or you miss something later, it's really not that big of a deal because what we're gonna do, we're just gonna output this as a layer mask. So we've got our refine edge brush tool, and like really this refine edge brush tool here, this is most of what you need to do within select and mask most of the time. If it misses a big area, you can like tell it with the quick selection brush here. You can just tell it what to include or not include, but most of the time you're just using the refine edge. Okay, cool. So here we're gonna go all the way down to the bottom where it says output to, okay? And I'm just gonna choose a layer mask. All right, so it's gonna take this selection, it's gonna go ahead and put it as a layer mask, and we're gonna hit okay. There we go. So because I have these images already behind my subject, look at that. My subject is now on this background. I'm just gonna make the background a little bit bigger. We're gonna use Control-Command-T for that. Now I wanna go ahead and crop this in. Let's go ahead and just change my framing a little bit. We're gonna hit Control or Command and click right here on the thumbnail of the background layer. And we're gonna go to Image and then down here to Crop. There we go. Crop that in.
That's a nice little trick.
Right? You don't have to like drag a marquee select, and it does it like perfectly. Like it's a perfect crop right around the background. There we go. And this is like already looking really cool. And like in my head, this is exactly like what I wanted. And I searched Adobe stock for like music notes flying in the background. Like I went all over the place to like try to find this image that I wanted. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make it. I'm gonna make it using Midjourney. I'm gonna make it using artificial intelligence. And I'm super happy with this result. I think it looks like really nice and natural. Now,
do you remember what you put in for the text prompt?
Oh my God. Let me like bring up my Discord real quick so you can see how many I like spent an hour and a half on this last night. Like no joke.
Wow.
I went through so many iterations. Let me just scroll back. Are you able to see my mid journey now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going back in time. There's like, if you guys haven't used Midjourney in like a year, they've added some really incredible features, and I'm totally blown away with it. So I'll scroll back to like the beginning of what I did, and you guys can see like what it was spitting out in the beginning, right?
This is so cool to see.
Yeah, like as you can see, I worked on this like a lot. Okay, so like so many. Okay, so like I did like generate a high quality photorealistic image of clouds shaped like music notes set against a vibrant bright blue sky. So like this is the kind of stuff it was outputting like originally, which is like totally decent. And then, you know, like this image, and then I was like, okay, try it again. And then it was like more like literal, like music notes, like with some clouds and stuff like that. I was like, no, I don't really want that. And it just like what I actually wanted was like clouds that were shaped like music notes in the background. I could not get it to do that. Like, as you can see, I tried hard.
Yeah. So interesting how much you wrote. I guess that kind of really helps it.
Oh, well, it's so okay. So I've got a little a secret little tip for everyone out there who's using Midjourney. Okay, you can actually program another AI called ChatGPT, which we probably all heard about now because it's blown up the internet, right? You can program ChatGPT with the language and the instructions of Midjourney to write these prompts for you.
Oh, snap.
Yes. So this was actually written by ChatGPT. So I told ChatGPT like 5 or 6 words, and then it generated all of this stuff, because like you can tell ChatGPT like all of the stuff that you need to make things a little bit more realistic. It's super cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. If you guys are interested in it, like I would just YouTube like ChatGPT for Midjourney. Okay. And like I can show you that too. Like I don't want to get like too off topic here, but it sounds like maybe people are interested in this. I don't know.
Yeah, I know I am. Let us know in the chat if anyone else is interested, or if Aaron and I are just on our own little tangent over here.
So I have like a ChatGPT that's like, I trained it specifically to give information for Midjourney. And if I go back in my history, like all the way to the top. Okay. So, it's not letting me, but basically like, I told it like, I'm going to create images with a diffusion model. I'm going to tell you more about it. And then what I did is I said, this is how Midjourney works. And then I literally like took this information from Midjourney's website. This is like what Midjourney tells you how it works. I took this information and fed it into ChatGPT. And then I told it like all this additional stuff, like the, Midjourney version 5, like what it can do. And then I fed it in all of the prompts and all the parameters too, like the aspect ratio, the quality prompts, the seed prompts, the style prompts, the stylized prompts, like all of this stuff. And then I gave it like the actual code of Midjourney as well. So ChatGPT, look at all this stuff. This is all like, computer speak, right? It's all like tech jargon. But I gave ChatGPT all this information about Midjourney. And then now with this stuff, it's able to generate stuff like ultra wide shot, modern photo shoot, 1970 woman in Hawaii. And then it says like Nikon D5100, aperture f2.8, ISO 100. So ChatGPT knows that Midjourney is actually looking for like camera information, depth of field information, all that sort of thing. So now, once I feed what I actually want, I just say like clouds floating by, shaped like big fluffy music notes on a bright blue sky, looking up with a bright sun, nice, happy. That's what I say. And then Chat GPT generates the like longer, more in-depth prompts that I then feed into Midjourney.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm like, mind is blown. That is so cool.
And you guys can just like, there's YouTube videos of people who are like experts on this, and they'll, you know, they just like kind of walk you through how to do it. So that's kind of like, you know, the process that I went through with all this stuff, but I still like wasn't getting like what I wanted at all. So then what I started doing is like I started trying to stylize it a little bit more, like watercolor sketch. But then for anyone using these programs, you can feed in information based on like certain artists' styles. And that actually gives Midjourney like a lot of information to start going with. So that's what I started doing. I went over to Google, and there's tools like in Google, you can just literally search for like artist image prompts for Midjourney. And there's websites dedicated, built out with like thousands of different artists, their names, pictures of their work, and prompts for Midjourney. So like this one I did in the style of like Mary Heilman, and it started generating these images. And I'm like, okay, now we're on to something. We're creating something more interesting. And this was just like more watercolor stuff. And then this was in the style of Raymond Staprands. And like, I actually like am not very familiar with these artists, if I'm being honest, but I found them on these prompt sites that are like made for Midjourney. And that's what wound up generating this image. And I was like, that is exactly what I want. So I did that. I went ahead and upscaled it. There we go. And you can see this is the image that we started with. I upscaled it to this.
Wow.
It's still 1024 by 1024. So then I was like, okay, we can take this and then we can feed it into Adobe Photoshop, into Super Zoom, and then we are able to make something like this.
Incredible. Thanks for showing us that, because I've always been so curious how people end up arriving at their final image, because it really can take hours and hours and so much time and thought. So that's cool.
Yeah, it really does. I just want to show you guys like one more thing with Midjourney. This is a new remix feature that they just recently launched, which like I was playing around it for today's tutorial, for instance, but like okay, so like I fed it in this image here, which we're actually going to work on later in this image. So you can upload images to Midjourney now. So I actually said, I uploaded this image and then I said wearing large top hats in 1920 style. And then it fed out these type of images, which
wow,
basically have like the same composition, like very, very similar images, but like with the prompts that I actually told it to do. So,
oh my God.
Super, super powerful stuff now. So Midjourney's gotten a lot better, and all these AIs are. Okay, so back in Photoshop, the next thing I want to do, like this image looks pretty good, but if I hold Shift and click on the background layer, what we're going to do is just move this over temporarily. You can see that the background layer of my original subject, the sky, okay, doesn't really match the colors of the sky in my Midjourney image, right? It's desaturated, the hue is a little bit different, the shadows are a little bit brighter. So what we want to do, and here's kind of the trick with like any type of background replacement, sky replacement that you're going to do, is you always want to make sure that like your new background matches as closely to the original background as possible, especially when it comes to saturation and light levels. The reason is like this sky is lighting the subject. Like the sky in the original photo is the real sky that was lighting the subject. So we want to make sure to match the new sky, even though it's like kind of like a painting, things like that, to this image. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to basically apply a couple filters to this background to make it look closer to the original sky. You can do that in a couple ways. You can do an adjustment layer and clip it. You can also just make the layer itself a smart object and then run adjustments directly on that layer, and then you can change this at any time. That's what we're going to do. We're going to right click here on the like gray area. So just go right over here to the gray area next to your layer. We're going to right click and we're going to go down to where it says convert to a smart object. Boom. So now you can see we got a smart object icon there. So let's hit Control or Command U. You can also just go to Image Adjustments, Hue, Saturation. Okay. Now this is not creating an adjustment layer. This is creating an actual adjustment, but because we're on a smart object, I can still go back and change this at any time. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to bring down the saturation a little bit, and you're already seeing, like, look, this is where it started here. Boom. Just bring down the saturation a little bit. We're going to bring up our lightness a little bit. There we go. And if I need to, I can just change the hue ever so slightly. There we go. And now it's matching a lot better. So let's just turn this preview off and back on. It's matching a lot better to the original one. So let's hit OK. Now, because we use this as a smart object, we made a smart object first, it applies that as a smart filter. So I can turn this smart filter off and on at any time. I can just double click right here where it says hue/saturation, and I get back to my original settings that I just did as well. So with this smart object filter on, now it's going to look a lot better. So let's go ahead. I'm going to hit Shift, click back on the layer mask of my subject, and then move, just move my subject back over to actually like where I want her. And now we can just take a look. Let's just turn this off and on. So there's the before and the after. You can see it looks much more natural. Like it really makes a big difference. And it's something that like is very easy to overlook because you think like, oh, blue sky, you know, all skies are blue. It's the same. But like the differences in saturation and hue and lightness, like they make a big difference in like how realistic it actually winds up looking and like the quality of the composite. So any sky replacement that you do, I know this is like more graphic and we used AI and all that stuff, but if you guys are just doing generalized sky replacement with like photo to photo, definitely make sure to go in. You want to always adjust the hue, always adjust the saturation, always adjust the lightness to make it match as close as you possibly can to the original. It's going to make it look a lot more real.
That's such a good tip. I love that.
Boom. There we go. We're just going to save this out.
Yeah.
Save it up. Do we got any questions from the chatty chat?
I don't know. Nothing right now, but everyone in the chat, let us know if you have any questions on what we just did. And I think we're going to move on to the next image, right?
We sure are. So this is our next image we're going to be working with. Now with this image, we're just going to go directly into Photoshop. So we're going to edit in. We're going to say open in Photoshop 2023, and we're just going to edit the original. All right, let's go into our Photoshop. Now this is going to be super fun because we are going to be, let's just go ahead and close that out. We are going to be creating light rays from scratch here in Photoshop. So we've got like the window here on the left. We've got this like light on the floor, but we want to add atmosphere and just make this a lot more interesting. So how do we do this? Well, we're going to start off by making the shape of our light rays. So let's hit L for the lasso tool. And I'm just going to use, let's drag this over here so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to use our regular polygonal lasso tool. There we go. So with the polygonal lasso tool, I'm going to start here at the bottom left of my window. There we go. And we're going to connect it with where it hits on the floor. There we go. Let's go all the way down to about here. We're going to come up to there. And then we're just going to say right about there and hit enter. Let me just make sure we include. Oh, that happens sometimes. All right. That is super annoying. Let's go to our rectangular marquee selection tool. And I'm just going to include that too. Okay. So now we have basically like the shape of what the window light would be. So we're going to take this because we already have a selection. If I make an adjustment layer, it's automatically going to load this selection into the layer mask of my adjustment layer. So we've got this already going. We're going to go to layer, down to new adjustment layer. And I'm just going to go over here to levels and hit OK. Alrighty. Now with our levels adjustment layer, we want to take a look at the quality of the light that we have. It's like yellowish, right? Like light always has color. it's always going to be slightly warm or slightly cool if it's natural light. And then of course you have neon lights and artificial lights and things like that. But you don't want to just take this and make it brighter because it's not going to like carry the color of the light. So here's my suggestion. We're with our levels. Here where it says RGB, that stands for red, green, and blue. That's just like all of our color channels mashed together. We're gonna go ahead and click there, and I'm gonna go to my red channel. And we're gonna take our output slider, which is just the darks. We're gonna start bringing this up. You can see how it basically takes all the dark information and it starts to make that more red. It makes it lighter and puts it more red, okay? There we go. So we'll just bring it about to there. You can change this at any time if you're not like sure where it should go. And we're gonna take our green slider and start bringing this up. There we go. And something right about there is starting to look pretty nice. So red and green together. Now we have this nice color that's working pretty well. So this is like a really good start to what we need. I'm gonna hit Control or Command J to duplicate that so we have a duplicate that we can reference. Okay, obviously it's way too well defined. Like this doesn't make sense. Light doesn't actually look like that. So we're gonna go ahead and click on our layer mask. We're gonna go to filter, we're gonna go down to blur, and I'm gonna Gaussian blur this, okay? So we wanna start with one blur that's like actually kind of like a pretty large blur. All right, so here's the preview. There's the before, and there's the after. There we go. So like a nice large blur, okay? And then we're just gonna like lower the opacity of that. So light, whenever you're working with light or shadow in Photoshop, do it in like a bunch of different layers because it'll add more complexity and more depth. So we have that layer, and then we've got this other layer, and then we're just gonna apply like a little bit less of a blur to this one. There we go. And we're gonna make the opacity a little bit lower on this as well. So you can see with both of these layers, they both kind of like add like a little bit of glow to this image. Now this is looking like okay so far. It's not perfect. What we want to do is add like little artifacts, and like, you know, when light shines through things, it's like, it's not like one pure light beam. It has like little like rays, light rays.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we're gonna make them. We're gonna make them with the brush tool. So let's hit B for the brush tool. I'm just on a new layer, and we're just gonna paint with black. I'm just gonna paint with black on a new layer. Now we're gonna go to Window and then down to Brush Settings. Let's go ahead and bring this over here. There we go. We don't need to see that for now. So our brush settings, we're going to turn on where it says scattering. I'm going to turn that on. There we go. Okay, we're going to scatter both axes, and I'm going to turn that way up. There we go. Scatter. We're also going to go to where it says brush tip shape, and we're going to bring up spacing. We're going to bring that way up. So basically what I got is like this. Now let's bring our spacing up even more. Okay, and our scattering up. There we go. Cool. So we got something like this now. I'm gonna make a couple different sizes of these, but basically we're just making like little dots and little spots here, okay? Dots and spots.
Dots and spots. That's
Boom.
The name of our show.
Welcome to Dots and Spots, everybody. There we go. Dots and spots. Okay, look at this, dots and spots. This is looking good. So they're like, it's like, how are you gonna make that into light rays? Well, all I wanna do is apply a blur to this. So we already got this, it's looking good. We're gonna go to filter, we're gonna go down to blur, and I'm gonna go to a motion blur. So we're just gonna go to motion blur, and I'm just gonna put this at an angle of 0, and then we're gonna blur that like way, way, way over there. Okay, so now we got this. It's kind of like hard-ish to see. Like you can hit, if I hit Control Command J a couple times, you can see a little bit better. But basically it just took these and kind of made them like longer, you know? So what we're gonna do now is we can take this shape, because basically like this is a rectangle, right? So if I hit Control or Command T and zoom out, you can see like basically this is just a rectangle of dots and spots. And so now I can take this, Control or Command T, I'm gonna hold my Control key and click on my little corner down here. So I'm gonna just click right here, bring that down there, take this other one and bring it down there. And then I can actually make it follow like the shape of my, there we go, the shape of my light rays. Check this out. So I started off just like converting it to, there we go. because you want it to be smaller up here and then like get larger as it gets down to the floor, right? So you can see the shape of this, like you can see as I move this around, let's just zoom in a little bit so it's a little bit more obvious. But as I move this around, we can see like, you know, now it doesn't look so much like it's following the shape of the light. Now it's starting to look like it actually does follow the shape of the light, right? So as I'm transforming this around, you can transform it to actually look like it's following the shape of the light that is smaller on the top left and larger on the bottom right. So it's going to make a lot more dynamic and a lot more realistic shape. So we can see if I hit enter there, I'm going to hit Control Command J a few times so you get the idea. But now we have this like effect that's actually like following the shape of the light pattern in our image.
So good. Like such a great way to do it. I end up always buying light ray packs because I'm like, how do I make this? I'm just going to buy a pack and overlay it, but this is way better.
I've never even, probably buying light ray packs is better. I never even thought to do that, but I'm just like, I don't know, how do I do it? So what we're gonna do now that I have the shape, and I know it's just black right now, that's not at all what we want, don't worry. It's only black so you guys can see it, right? It doesn't matter. But what we want to do now is just turn this layer into a selection, right? Because it's just a regular layer. So I'm going to hold Control or Command and click on the layer, okay? And now it actually is a selection. So like what I just made, all those like little like dots and spots that we transferred out, that's a selection now. So now I can click here on the layer mask with these levels adjustment layers that I made. I can click on the layer mask itself, and then we're going to go to edit and then down to fill, and we're going to fill this with black. Okay. So what it's going to do, let's hit OK. There we go. Let's just do it again. Shift delete, fill that with black. Shift delete, fill that with black. There we go. We'll do it again here. There we go. So now, as you can see, these light rays, it's not just this black thing that we were making before. It's actually, if I hold Alt or Option and take a look at the layer mask, now it's affecting the actual layer mask for these light rays that we made. So we have like light rays that are actually following this, they're including this information, which is so cool. And you can still go in here and change the color. Like if you're, you know, for me, I was like, maybe it could be a little bit more red, things like that. All right.
So good.
Isn't this fun?
Yeah. And was this something you kind of just discovered or have known for a long time? Or did you like find it somewhere, this particular technique?
I just kind of made it up, I guess.
That's so cool. I want to come live in your brain for a little while so I can like learn these things too. And then
careful what you wish for. There's a lot more hanging out in there other than Photoshop techniques. I'll tell you that much.
That's true. Now I know about your emotional days. So
yeah, man. Yeah. So we're going to take this a couple steps further. What we're going to do, I'm going to hit Shift and click on both of those, hit Control or Command G to group them together. And then I want to select my subject. So let's click on our background. We're going to go to select, and then we're going to go down to subject over here. There we go. Because our subject should be interrupting some of this light, right? Like it's going to not all like pass perfectly through her. So what I can do, because I have, there we go. Let's just go ahead and put a layer mask here on the group with these light rays there. We're going to go to select, back down to subject here. Okay. And then what I can do, I'm going to hit Control or Command H to just hide my selection really quick. I'm going to use my brush tool. We'll just click. I'm just going to do a regular brush because we had that dots and spots brush before, but we now can go and like hide some of the light rays just where my subject is, right? So I'm going in, you can see this is the layer mask now. Here's the before and after. I'm actually hiding some of the light rays where like maybe my subject would be interrupting the light, right? So we have a completely different effect there. Isn't that neat?
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm going to add a hue saturation. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so great. Like genius.
Genius. There we go. Hue saturation adjustment layer. I'm just going to add this on the top, and it's not working when I clip that actually. I don't want it to be like so yellow. I think the color is a little bit off. I think I made it like too much color there. So I'm just gonna go in here and kind of change that. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. Okay, so there we go. We've got like light rays coming through, interrupted by our subject. The very last step we're gonna do, I'm gonna create a new layer. We're gonna hit L for our lasso tool. We'll just do a regular lasso brush. And this is like kind of a cool trick for creating like dust and speckles and stuff like that. I just wanna create like a little shape here. There we go, something like that. We're gonna fill that with white. Actually, I don't wanna feather that at all. So let's just bring out the feathering. Create a little shape there, fill that with white, okay? And I'm gonna create a little shape over here. Maybe something like that and fill that with white. Okay, so like literally on this layer, there's only two things. There's this little shape right there and that little shape right there, okay? Let me just take the edge off of that real quick. Perfect. So with those layers now, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna create a new layer. M for the marquee tool. We're gonna make a new rectangular marquee, just like that, and fill this with black, and then put it under our layer and then merge those together. Wait, I want this to be the opposite. I'm gonna create a custom brush, by the way. You're like, what are you doing, dude?
I know, I'm like, well, I wonder what he's gonna do here.
We're creating a custom brush, which you actually want it to be opposite. You want the brush color to be black on a white background. So that little spot there and this little spot up there, that's gonna wind up making my custom brush. So let's merge those together. Control or Command, click on that. We're gonna go to edit, and then we're gonna go down to define brush preset. There we go. Let's hit OK. So now let's just make this invisible. I'll create a new layer. If I hit B for my brush tool and just make this a little bit smaller, you can see, I'll just paint with red so we can see what we're doing here. Like this is the brush that I'm actually making. If I zoom way in, you can see like that's the brush, right? It's just as I paint around, that's what it looks like. It's not very interesting or good right now. But if we go to Window and then down to Brush Settings, I'm gonna turn on scattering. Let's go ahead and scatter this way up. And you can see in the preview here, like it's already starting to look like dust particles, right? Mm-hmm. We're gonna turn on both axes. I'm gonna turn on shape dynamics, size jitter. We're gonna go to angle jitter, transfer. I'm gonna turn on opacity jitter, okay? And now as I do this, check this out. Now as I do this, it's still just red right now, right? But you're gonna see it's looking a lot more just like random little particles everywhere, right? There we go. Let's go ahead and close this out. We don't need to do that. So there we go. Let's just delete that. I'm gonna hit B for the brush tool and actually like grab the color of the light here. And then look at this. As I paint with this, I'm gonna zoom in so we can see. As I paint with this, it's creating like these little dust speckles everywhere, and it's super random. There we go. It really doesn't look like a Photoshop effect so much. They're too big, right? So we'll just hit D for we'll just delete it all. Now I'll just make my brush a little bit smaller. And then now we're seeing these like little dust particles and speckles and things like this. Because when you see like light coming through, like, stuff like this, it like lights up the little dust and specks and things like that in the air, right? Like,
right.
That's a really big thing for making these effects look real. Okay. And then you can just take this layer that I've made all that stuff on, just change this to something like soft light. There we go. And then now, boom, we're seeing all these little dust and speckles and things like that in the air. And that just kind of helps sell that effect. We'll zoom in so guys can kind of see it there. But it helps to sell that effect of like, now it's like lighting up the dust and speckles and things like that in the image.
So good. Fun. I love it.
Super, super cool.
I'm going to have to rewatch this and try it out.
Yeah, it's super fun. And just like making silly little dust brushes is like, I don't know. It's just fun to do this stuff,
Yeah, well, it's really cool to do it all from scratch because, again, like dust is something that I would go buy a pack of or find like a PNG or a brush that was pre-made. And then to remember, oh, yeah, I know how to use Photoshop. I can make it myself.
I can just make the brush.
I guess I'm just really lazy.
No, you're probably
what I'm discovering.
You're probably just smart. I'm the one who's like, why am I doing all this stuff by scratch? All right. There we go. Okay, cool. So now we're going to go back into Lightroom and we're looking good. So we're going to move on to our next image. That's actually going to be these images here. So let's right click. We're going to go to edit in. We're going to say open as layers in Photoshop.
Claudia said she's thinking the same as me. So that's good. At least I'm not the only one that's like, I'll go buy it.
You guys are just smart. I'm the one who's like, I'll make it. Plus, you know, like years of teaching Photoshop tutorials, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to teach now. Like, let's figure something, you know what I mean? Like that's that's a fun thing.
Yeah, and it's so amazing too, because so many of these little simple things like making a dust brush or the light rays are still stuff that is so valuable to know and to learn. And even to this day, like 10 years plus of Photoshop time, I'm like, oh, that looks so good. That's a new way to do it, you know?
Yeah, the fun thing about making it yourself is that like once you know how to do it, you can do it right for every single image. So like if you can't find the right dust brush or the light brush or whatever, it's like, okay, cool. I can just make it. It's, you know, no biggie. So here's our next sample image. I really like this woman graphic and I found this background. This is just Adobe stock. And honestly, it's probably AI generated, but I didn't do this. I just got it off Adobe stock, but I wanted to make this background like as the background for this woman, but like it's not going to match really that well. So the first thing we need to do, I'm going to click here on our layer. By the way, how much time do we have left in our stream?
We have about 30 minutes, a little less than 30 minutes.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to start by going to select and then down to select subject once again, our favorite. All right, let's just choose a regular brush there. So with select subject, then we're going to go to select and mask. There we go, this nice green color. We're going to use our refine edge brush here. And I just want to get a better selection of our subject. There we go. How this tool works, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like kind of amazing. Kind of amazing. There we go. Good. Perfect. And her hair and that sort of stuff. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's looking pretty good. We're gonna output this to a layer mask and hit okay. So now this is like, all right, cool. Like we already got something that's kind of cool. But like at this point, this background like doesn't really match our subject. I want the colors of this background to match the subject much better. So like you might be tempted to just hit like Control or Command U for hue saturation and drag this to the left or the right, but like you don't really have that much control over the colors. It's just like going to change all the colors at the same time, right? Like to something that you don't really have any say over. You can also hit this Colorize, but like in my opinion, Colorize mostly produces like pretty boring results because like now everything's like the same hue and it's like that's not interesting. The original had like yellows and grays and blues and different shades of all that stuff, right? I don't like using that Colorize very much. What we're going to do is we're going to use a gradient map. And then with that gradient map, we're going to sample colors of our subject and bring that on top of the graphic. So it's going to like integrate everything really well. This is going to be super cool. So let's go to, oh snap, gradient map.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We're going to go to layer, down to new adjustment layer. And I'm going to go over to where it says gradient map. There we go. Let's hit okay. Now with gradient map, always be sure you click right here on the gradient itself. If you click on the gradient map, when you try to do a custom gradient, it'll sample from the layer mask, which is white. So it's like kind of doesn't work. So you have to click on the gradient map itself. So just a heads up, that's an important step. Okay, let's go to our properties and then we're going to click here on gradient editor. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab colors from my subject. So let's go ahead and take the left. So if anyone hasn't used a gradient map before, basically like whatever gradient you make here completely dictates the colors of your image. And whatever's on the left side of the gradient dictates the darks. Whatever's on the right side dictates the lights. Okay, so here on the left, we're going to go to color. Let's go ahead and click there. And then I just want to sample colors from my subject. And don't worry if you don't know what you're doing. You can change all this at any time. Okay, so sampled some dark from her hair. We're going to click over here, color, and then we're going to sample from her skin. Click over there, go over here. I'm going to sample colors from like her shirt. Click over there, go over here. I want to sample a color from her eye makeup, that like cool, like nice, like green color we have. Okay.
Yes.
And then let's go over here and I want to sample colors from like the lights in her shirt. All right. And as I move these around, you can see like wherever I sample, it's going to really like change these effects. Now, as I do this, like I don't really like that result so far, but you can move these sliders until you do like your results. That's the whole deal with these gradient maps, is like, feel free to like move them around until you're actually getting something that is interesting and like, you think actually works. I want it to be like lighter in general. And this orange color, like I do like, but I think it needs to be lighter. There we go. And then maybe this green color needs to be a little bit lighter too. And then maybe I want to like swap those over. There we go. Let's bring that around there. Bring this over here. This green is cool, but like maybe I want a little bit more orange in there. So I'm going to just add another orange one and we're going to bring that over there. Let's make this a little bit lighter orange. There we go. So you can see as I move these little points here, we're getting like very different effects. Let's bring this over here, bring that one over there. All right, I definitely want like more orange in general. Like I think I need to move everything over to the right a little bit to get the amount of oranges that I want. There we go. Looking pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's looking really good there. Maybe I'll just put another one in there and then I'll make this like bright. There we go. It's kind of cool. Change this. This is super fun.
That is so sweet.
Isn't this fun?
Love it.
Do you want the darks in there? So like completely recoloring something in Photoshop is like, in my opinion, this is the best way because like all this control I have over this now is like, I don't know. I just feel like I can dial something in that like actually works with like that's good. I like that. That's like a nice like balance between like the greens and the oranges. There we go. Maybe I'll bring that a little bit more to the right so we get a little bit more orange in there. There we go. So you can see every time I move these sliders, it's like we have a totally different effect in there. All right. And that looks pretty cool. I'm going to hit OK. Keep in mind, you can change this at any time. You can even click this reverse and you're going to get a totally different effect, right? So super interesting. You can change your method here. You have a few different ways of like interpreting this information. There we go. I kind of like this linear a little bit better, but let's go ahead and just turn this off and on. So there's our original. You can see it's just like blues and yellows and grays, which is super cool. But here with our gradient map, there we go. Actually, I do want it to be a little bit more saturated. With the gradient map, I was able to completely recolor this now to something that matches the image. So
that's so amazing. Like what a great way to color rather than I would definitely have just gone to hue and played around with that, like how you started. And that's so cool.
Yeah. Like if you just go to hue, like, okay, let's say like you want some of the oranges in there, right? So I'm going to like move to where I get oranges, but then it's like, okay, I got the oranges, but then now I'm stuck with all these blues and these grays and other stuff like that. Like you're never going to get the control that you want if you're just dragging a hue saturation slider, like you're just going to kind of get stuck with whatever it gives you. And then again, Colorize just gives you something like usually quite boring, right? Like if you compare that to this, where like we dialed that in specifically for the subject, it's like, wow, okay, that's way, it's just more interesting. And then I want to kind of take this and like rotate it. I want the background to kind of like look like it's
Whoa.
What am I doing here?
It looks like so crazy when you turn it. It looks like it's spinning.
Oh God. I'm tripping out.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, cool. Too much. I'm going too much here. But basically, like, I kind of want this like this little swooshy whoosh of my background. I wanted that to, like, let's hit escape there. I thought that was gonna look cooler than I did. Let's just make it I'm gonna change my height. I wanted the pattern of the background to match my subject a little bit better. That works better, actually. If I just like stretch it height wise. Yeah, that works a little bit better. So now it kind of looks like this thing that's going on in the background kind of like looks like it's going around her head a little bit more. And to me, that's just like a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, that's really nice. I like that.
All righty. There we go. So thanks for saying you like that. I like that too.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's take a look at the background now, and we can see like it wasn't just like one solid color, right? Like it's not just like straight orange, like it's lighter on the right-hand side and darker on the left-hand side. Like it's being lit by the light that is lighting our subject as well. So if you just go put a flat background into your image, it's going to look really flat. It's not going to really look like it has much to offer at all. So there's a few things that we could do here to kind of like bring these back together. One thing that we could do is take our layer, hold Alt or Option and just duplicate that and bring that to the bottom and then turn off our layer mask, right? So like basically I just have like my regular layer on the bottom. So one thing that we can do, let's just clip this gradient map to my stock image, is I can just start to like lower the opacity of this like gradient thing that I made here to like have some of the background be visible through it, right? So like we can do a subtle effect like this. We can go a little bit stronger effect. You can change your blending mode to something like soft light or overlay. Something that I like to do is I'll hit V for my move tool and then hit Shift plus and minus, and this just scrolls through all of my different blending modes. So I can kind of take a look at what I got here. I'm going to put that back to normal. And then what we're going to do like is basically just recreate that light coming from the right to the left. So we can just do that super easy. We'll just go to layer, down to new adjustment layer, and we're going to go to levels. Let's hit OK. Let's go ahead and clip that to my sample image as well. So with our levels here, I can just take my darks and I can bring that up a little bit. Okay. On my layer mask, I'm going to hit Control or Command I, and then I'm going to hit G for my gradient tool. And then I'm just going to drag a gradient from the right to the left. So like we're basically like kind of imitating the light that was in the original image, and we're putting that here on the background. There we go. So it just looks a little bit more dynamic. And we can do that again with the darks here. Let's go to levels. We're just going to bring, there we go. Bring that a little bit darker. I'm going to take my light levels and bring that down a little bit over to the left. Flip that again. And then I can just actually apply this exact same layer mask by clicking and dragging, and then hit Control or Command I on the layer mask there to invert it. There we go. So there's our before and the after with this. Maybe it's a little bit too strong on that, but we just have like a little bit more light. Let me just open this door. There we go. So we have a little bit more light and a little bit more interest on this background now than we did with our original one. There we go. So it should look like it's integrating a little bit better. There we go. Let's go ahead and group those. So there's our before and the after. And I think I'm just going to like lower the opacity of that entire group just a little bit so we get something that's a little more interesting. And then if you want to, you can click on your layer and like give it like a slight Gaussian blur. There we go, or something like that. So it kind of like looks like it's actually like in the background.
Yeah.
There we go. And keep in mind, like if you want to go into your gradient map and like change this at any time, like if you want like less greens or more greens, like you can go in and change this at any point in time. Like you're really like not stuck with any of these decisions. Like, you know, you can you can change this stuff, which is like, if you're ADD and love to change your mind as much as I do, then this is great.
Yep, that's me.
Yay, change your mind at any time.
Yep. Every day is different.
Every day is different. Who am I going to be today? Wow.
Exactly.
What are my interests? What are my hobbies today? Who am I?
Yep. It's exhausting, but keeps things interesting, right?
Yeah, exhausting for us and then exhausting for everyone else to live with us too.
Yeah, exactly.
They love it. They love us for it too, though.
I know. They're like, oh, this is fun. I get to hang out with someone new every day.
Yay. Oh, so much fun. So there we have it. Like, I think this sort of thing is super fun. And just like taking these abstract backgrounds and patterns and things like that and putting them behind your portraits, I think just gives it like a little bit more, just a little bit more interest in, like, maybe your client wants this stuff, maybe they don't, but like, obviously the original image was dope too.
Yeah. So cool.
So cool. Alrighty. So let's see. Here's the next thing that we're going to do is let's move on. I had an order planned out. Let's do a little sky replacement. I want to show you guys this thing here as well. We'll actually go in order. So we're going to go to edit in. I'm going to open these as layers in Photoshop. There we go. Alrighty. And
Carla said, watching Aaron is like playtime. I always have to go back for the specific techniques because just watching for the creative inspiration is so fun. I could not agree more.
Oh, it's so fun. Thank you, Carla. Thanks for everyone watching. This is super fun.
Yeah.
So we've got a, like, wedding-ish couple, happy, light flare coming in, but the sky is just a little bit boring. It's a little bit blown out, and like there is a sun in the sky, as you can see right here, but there's not a lot of detail there. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go to this layer. We're gonna go to select and then down to select sky. And I know there is a sky replacement tool in Photoshop, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I kind of like to do it manually, honestly, because I generally find I can get like better results just because I'm like a super Photoshop nerd. So for me, it's like,
Yeah, I agree with you though.
I want to do everything manually, but of course, for anyone who like doesn't want to do it this way, there is an actual tool called sky replacement in Photoshop, which works really, really well. Alrighty, so we're just going to output this to a layer mask and hit OK. There we go. Now it's the opposite of what we want in terms of our layer mask. Let's hit Control or Command I, and there we have our new layer. Let's go back to, remember earlier we talked about select and mask can be used at any time. If you just click here on your layer mask, go to select and then down to select and mask again, I can just basically like tell it, hey, include that area between the people too, there we go, and hit OK. Fantastic. So this is something that like we encounter all the time. And I don't know if you've ever seen posts like this on social media where it's like sky replacement, boom, done, looks great, Yep.
And you're like, no.
You're like, you need to do one more thing, and that's match the light. So like we talked about it earlier, but like the light from the sky is the light that lights the entire image. Like if you're in a studio and you're using soft boxes, that's what's going to light your image, right? But like in this case, it's just the light from the sky. So like if you have a bright sky, that's lighting your subject, and it's like it's dictating the exposure of the entire photo. So if you go and put like a dark, colorful, saturated sky in here like this, there's a reason it doesn't look good. Is like the light doesn't match. Your brain's like that. It knows that's not real, right? It like knows it doesn't exist. So first thing we want to do, we're just going to kind of like bring this up a little bit. And like, okay, so technically, the sun is like right there in my original image, right? Like that, we can see it. Like that's where the sun is in the original photo. In this photo, the sun is like right here. It's behind those clouds. So if you wanted it to be like technically perfect, the sun would be in the exact same place. That's like a big tip. It's not super important, and I couldn't find like the perfect image where the sun was exactly where I wanted it. So we're gonna kind of fib. We're just gonna make it close-ish, but that's usually gonna be okay. So we're just gonna put this right over here. And then we're going to just make it a little bit larger. So the sun's going to be like close, but it's not going to be perfect. But it is important you get like a light area where the sun is, right? Like over here, you know, like put that dark cloud where it used to be a sun spot right there. That's not going to look good. So let's just at least put the like bright-ish part there. And then I can just add more light right there to it. Okay, so this is, you know, it's a little bit cheating, but it's going to look a lot better than, you know, than this anyway. Okay, so let's take a look at our original image. You can see not a lot of saturation and it's actually quite bright. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to click here on this layer. We're going to go and create a smart object. There we go, of this layer. And then I'm going to hit Control-Command-U for hue saturation. And we're just going to start by bringing the saturation down a little bit, right? Because the saturation of my original sky just like wasn't that bright. So by bringing a saturation down a little bit, it's like, okay. And I know this nice, bright, saturated sky is like, yeah, that's dope, but it's not going to work. Like you know, you want your composite to actually look good rather than being like, here's a cool part of an image mixed with another cool part of an image, but they don't actually mix. Like it's more important that they actually mix. All right, so next we're going to hit Control-Command-L for our levels. There we go. And we can just make the sky a little bit brighter. Again, like I still want like this nice detail of the sky in my image. We'll go to my red channel. I can start working with our different color channels. You can see, okay, here, for instance, you see those trees? That's like a little bit more green and desaturated than the sky, right?
Right.
So what I'm going to do is go to my green channel and we're just going to put like a little bit more green into my sky. And you can see as I do, it's looking more natural, right? Like not so far, but just a little bit more, right?
Yeah,
so
that helps a lot.
It helps a lot with like so let's hit okay there. Let's just turn these off and on. So there's the before and there's the after, like already, like especially this area, you can see that area, you can see like it helps a lot. And like, I know the sky isn't like as vivid as it was before, but it's still a lot more interesting than the sky was originally, right? Okay, already looking pretty good. And then now on the top of all of this, I'm just gonna grab another levels adjustment layer. And then we're just gonna take our dark levels and really kind of like bring that up there and make it a little bit brighter. I'm gonna hit Control-Command-I on the layer mask there. So we just have a black layer mask, and then I'm gonna hit G for our gradient tool. And we're gonna go for a radial gradient. And then I'm just gonna click and pop that out there too. So I'm kind of like redoing that little light flare on my subject, right? And I'm doing it over top of my subject and over top of the sky. So it's gonna affect both of them. So we're just gonna like, it's just gonna like have the illusion that it works a little bit better. And now I can still like move my sky around a little bit as I want. I think the original placement was like pretty good, but if you want to move your sky, you can totally do that. All right. And then
Amazing.
Like this is looking a lot better than it did. Like there's the before, there's the after, but like here at the end, if you want to then go ahead and do like a color balance, you're like, well, I like the warm and the orange and the red. You can do a color balance at the end and kind of bring in some of those like nice warm tones and stuff like that to your image. And then you can just do it to like your whole image at the same time once you have the sky like matched, right? Like once the sky is actually like looking good, that's a little bit too strong of an effect for my personal taste, but like you can do a color balance and then go in and adjust the colors after the fact, and then you're going to get a much more natural looking image. And I'm just going to even brighten up those shadows of the sky even more. Like it's just like we want some detail of a sky, because the original, as we can see, just like, let's turn all that off. The original sky just had like absolutely no detail in it. It's just not interesting at all. So with this new sky, like, yes, we have like more interesting, it's definitely prettier. Obviously it's not the same as like the sky straight out of camera that we put in there, but it looks a lot more realistic than it would be had we just used it straight out of camera.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. It's just like a perfect little subtle effect.
It's subtle. And like the light now looks like it matches, right? Like the light from the sky looks like it's lighting the portrait. and it blends together. So it's like subtle enough to where it works. We have more detail in the sky, but it's not, yeah. And so for anyone doing sky replacement, I would say like that's the key, is like try to get your new sky to match as good as you possibly can to the original sky. It's just going to make it look a lot more realistic.
Such a good tip. I love it.
All right. Let's go ahead and save this out. All right.
So we have about 6 minutes left.
6 minutes left. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. All right. I got one more cool thing that I want to show you guys. We're going to go to edit this in Photoshop 2023. I learned this from Jesus Ramirez, by the way. Super cool.
Best.
He is the best. He's got a heart the size of Jupiter.
He really does.
We're going to take this image and recolor it. So got all kinds of funky color on our subject. Now, a lot of the times we use Colorize in Photoshop to make a black and white photo into a color photo, but you can actually just do it to like recolor an actual portrait because it uses artificial intelligence. So let's go ahead. I'm going to duplicate my layer. We're going to go to filter, neural filters. There we go. Let's go ahead and bring this in. We're going to go over to this where it says Colorize. Boom. And when I turn that on, it auto colors our image.
What?
Right?
So crazy.
So crazy. And now, like, it did a little bit of like a something weird on the background, but I can just sample this color. We're just going to change this from normal down to a color blend mode and then like harmonize the background. So I'm just like literally just painting with a blue brush on the background to kind of like make that where it is. But like it knows there's a person there. It's artificial intelligence, right? So it knows there's a person. It knows the colors of people, like, you know, like, and so you can use this tool to completely remove color casts from your subject. Like there's the before and there's the after using artificial intelligence to completely recolor your subject. And it takes like 2 seconds to do. So if you photograph someone, like this happens all the time, like maybe you're at a rock concert or something and they got like a red light shining on their face or something, and you're like, you can use the colorize function to completely recolor them. And boom, it's as simple as that. It takes 2 seconds.
Unbelievable. That's amazing how it just like fully gave their natural skin tone back.
Yeah, like doing this manually would have been a lot of work and probably not really as good.
Oh my God. Wow. That's cool because I've seen Colorize used for black and white pictures, like fully giving it a whole new color, but to actually use it for color correction is incredible. Yeah. Did everyone like that? I feel like that was very mind-blowing to me.
A whole new world, to quote Aladdin.
Yes. I was going to start singing it and then I was like, no, don't do that.
Please do that. Yes.
I'll do it for you next time I see you.
Deal. We'll sing it together. It'll be a duet.
Sounds good.
Amazing.
Love it.
Well, there we go. Like that's today's stream. We covered so many cool things today. I'm super excited. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate everyone being in the chat, and hope you learned a lot of fun Photoshop and Lightroom techniques.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aaron. This was awesome. And thank you so much, everyone in the chat and on Behance and YouTube for joining us. It was such a fun stream. And before we hop off of here, just want to remind everyone to stay tuned for a new episode of Design Fix with Claudia from Print My Soul. And you can learn how to refresh an old logo for a seashore lane, a handmade product shop based in Queensland. So that will be super fun. Tune into that. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Aaron, always a pleasure to host you and hang out with you and learn from you. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Anna. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye.